So let's talk about new stuff. So last class we were talking about barriers to entry, and we said one was essential control over an essential input, like a natural resource, oil or diamonds. De Beers is a diamond company that controls a lot of diamond distribution. So that was number one, control over essential input. Second, we talked about network economies, which is like as more people use a product, its worth increases, the company's value increases as more people use it. And then the next thing we should talk about is another barrier to entry is startup cost. So number 3 is startup costs. Startup costs is a barrier to an entry because to start up any business, you need to make that initial investment. That could be setting up the plant, that could be setting up the office, or whatever it is that you're starting the business for. It's always going to have a startup cost, and a lot of the times it can be huge. So it can be a barrier to enter the industry because a lot of people may not have that kind of money or resources to set up the business. So startup costs are a barrier to entry. So startup costs are high fixed costs that you need in the beginning. Graph of average total cost shows that increasing production affects long run. That graph of average total cost shows that increasing production decreases the cost. So this is also referred to as economies of scale. That as you produce more, the cost will decrease. Economies of scale is as you produce more, cost will decrease. So the cost tends to decrease in the long run as you produce more because of the management techniques and the specialization, and as they produce more, they become more and more efficient. So in the long run, as firms produce more, their cost decreases because they become more efficient, have better management techniques, so in the long run they develop better management techniques and become more efficient, which is why the cost starts to decrease. So we're going to do an example, a simple example, Chick-fil-A. Their startup cost is $150,000. Their marginal cost, meaning cost of producing one sandwich, is $2. So, if Chick-fil-A produces Chick-fil-A produces quantity 1,000. So 1,000 sandwiches. Their average total cost would be their fixed cost, which is the startup cost, right? Fixed cost or startup cost is the same thing. So average total cost is their fixed cost, which is $150,000, plus their variable cost, which is their how much they're producing times $2. So 10,000 sandwiches they're producing times $2 per sandwiches. Divided by 10,000 sandwiches. So this gives you $152. The average total cost is coming out to be $152 if they're producing 1,000 sandwiches. So this is the fixed cost component, this is the variable cost component. And you divide that by the quantity, you get the ATC. Now, if Chick-fil-A produces, let's say, 10,000 sandwiches, their ATC would be, the fixed cost is still $150,000, right? I'm sorry, this one was supposed to be 1,000, not 10,000. The next one is 10,000, sorry. So 10,000 times 2, $2 per sandwich, right? Divided by 10,000. Same thing on the bottom here, it's 1,000. This is 10,000. It will give you $17. So the first quantity was 1,000, you have to put 1,000 here and here, and the second quantity is 10,000. I hope you all have corrected the mistake in your notes. Okay. So what about if they produce 100,000 sandwiches? We're going to have the same fixed cost plus 100,000 times 2 divided by 100,000 is the quantity of sandwiches, right? So you will get $3.50. As you see that as you're producing more and more, the average total cost per quantity is decreasing, right? So if we were to draw a little graph, it would look like this. $152, 17, 350, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000. So at 1,000 we were at 152. At 10,000 we were at $17, and then at 100,000 we were at $3.50. And if you draw the line, you see that it's a decreasing slope. That looks like this. This is your ATC, right? This is economies of scale. That as you produce more, your cost will decrease. And a lot of firms do that. They expand their production and they start to manage efficiently, and their cost decreases, and what happens is, you know, their revenues go up. Okay. So what happens is that a firm that has paid the startup cost of 150,000 and is now producing, you know, 100,000 sandwiches, has an advantage over a firm who is just coming into the industry and is not able to produce that much and can only produce 1,000, or cannot pay, or let's say even cannot pay the startup cost. But let's say they even pay the startup cost, but they're not able to yet produce this much. So the company who is already in the industry has an advantage over a new company that wants to enter the industry, right? So current firms have a cost advantage over potential new firms. Right? That makes sense? So that was number 3. Economies of scale or startup cost is another barrier to an entry, right? Current firms have a cost advantage to new firms. So number 4 is just copyrights and licenses. I cannot just practice law if I wanted to, right? I need a license, I need to pass the bar, I need to, you know, get a law degree, etc. So same thing, that's a barrier to an entry into legal services. Copyrights, same thing. I mean, you can't just sell someone's original idea. If somebody has made some original music, you cannot make money out of it because it's copyrighted. So these were the 4 barriers to entry. Now we're going to start talking about what happens when there's a barrier to entry? Monopoly exists. So when firms have ability to increase the price and earn profit. They are the price setters. They set the price of the product in the market. Competitive firms were price takers because there's low barrier to entry. Anybody can come into the market and sell the product. The market sets the price because the good is a common, standardized good. These goods are unique goods or not standard goods. These are, more customized stuff. So the people who are selling them has the ability to set the price. Competitive firms were price takers. This was the gist of competitive market, that marginal revenue was equal to the price, and at that point, marginal cost would be equal to, that would be their equilibrium point, right? That's not the case for monopolists. For monopolists, price is greater than marginal cost. But the equilibrium